Welcome to Crime Ciphers, where we unravel the darkest mysteries behind closed doors. Today, we dive deep into a chilling true crime story that will grip you from start to finish. In a quiet town, a family's perfect life shatters overnight, revealing secrets, betrayal, and tragedy beyond imagination. What really happened behind those walls? Stay tuned as we decode the clues, piece together the truth, and bring you a story you won't forget. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Let's solve these mysteries together. Let's move to our first story. And this one begins with a neighborhood where a single welfare check would crack open the facade of the perfect family, revealing a secret no one thought possible. Breaking news from Frederick, Colorado. In a quiet American suburb where neighbors once waved good morning and children played on sun-splashed driveways, a nightmare story unfolded. One that would stun every person who ever believed evil couldn't hide next door. Chris was known as the friendly husband who watered his lawn and played with his daughters in the yard. Shanann was the energetic mother, always updating her friends about her joys and worries. Never shy to post another cheerful video about their perfect life. They had two daughters, Bella, age 4, and Celeste, age 3. Shanann was excitedly preparing for the arrival of their third child, already sharing pictures of baby clothes and nursery decorations with her friends and followers. Every social media post was a celebration of family, love, and laughter. And to the outside world, everything seemed beautifully ordinary. What no one saw were the shadows creeping in behind closed doors. The couple often argued about money and the future. Chris became withdrawn and distant, sometimes slipping away from family events or spending more time than usual on his phone. Shanann, once so optimistic, sometimes hinted at troubles in her updates. Little cracks in the happiness quickly smoothed over for the camera. On August 13th, Shanann returned home from a weekend work trip. Exhausted but excited to see her daughters, she stepped into a house that felt colder than before. That morning, her friends began to worry when they couldn't reach her. Texts went unanswered, calls rang and rang. By mid-afternoon, mounting panic pushed her friends to call for help. A local officer drove to check on the family. Chris answered the door, polite but strangely calm, claiming Shanann was gone on an errand with the girls. He let the officers search, but his tone was off, emotionless, almost rehearsed. As the sun set and night crept in, the worry spread. Shanann's parents were desperate for answers. Friends offered to help, and the police started looking deeper. Street camera footage showed Chris backing his truck into the driveway around 5 a.m., loading it for several minutes, then leaving quickly. The contents of the truck were never seen, and neighbors remembered nothing unusual. To investigators, though, every little detail started adding up to something bigger. In the days that followed, Chris appeared on local news, pleading for the safe return of his family. "Please, bring my girls home," he said, barely looking at the camera, his voice flat and lifeless. Online, the community erupted. How could a loving father and husband endure such a nightmare without shedding a tear? At the same time, detectives began searching everywhere. Fields, back roads, even distant oil sites connected to Chris's work. Still, no trace of Shanann, Bella, or Celeste. Detectives brought in specialized search teams looking through wooded areas and remote oil fields. They used police dogs, drones, and phone data to retrace Chris's steps the night his family vanished. They checked neighbors' security cameras for any movement and scanned local landfills for traces of evidence. Friends described Chris as distant in the days before Shanann disappeared, some recalling how he seemed distracted, rarely speaking about his wife or children. The sense of something being deeply wrong grew with every passing hour. When questioned, Chris's stories began falling apart. First, he insisted that Shanann left after an argument, taking the girls with her. The next day, his account slipped again, suggesting maybe Shanann was upset and needed space. Detectives pressed harder, and soon, his lies started to unravel. Forensic teams searched phones, poured through social media, and tracked every movement the family made that week, reconstructing a digital trail that painted a different picture than Chris wanted anyone to see. After 3 tense days, Chris agreed to take a polygraph test. The results were clear as day. As the technician later said, he was lying. Faced with mounting pressure and undeniable evidence, Chris finally broke. What he confessed left everyone in disbelief. He admitted to killing Shanann in their bedroom after an argument. In a chilling detail, Chris said that Bella and Celeste witnessed more than anyone could bear. The girls' last moments, described with disturbing calm, would haunt investigators and family members forever. Detectives were led by Chris to a remote oil field outside of town. It was there, in the shadow of tall metal silos, that search teams found what the public had feared. Shanann had been buried in a shallow grave, barely concealed by loose dirt, a grim ending for a hopeful young mother. Bella and Celeste were found hidden in separate oil storage tanks nearby. A detail so gruesome, it stunned even the most experienced law enforcement officers. Their innocence stolen, their lives cut short in a horrifying betrayal. America was shaken. Candlelight vigils sprouted in neighborhoods across the country. People who had never met Shanann wept for her family, leaving flowers and teddy bears on her porch and sharing moments of silence in her memory. Chris was arrested, his face shown on every news channel. Inside the community hall, friends and family gathered in grief, grappling with questions no one could answer. Shanann's parents, heartbroken, looked for comfort in letters and messages from people who had been touched by her story. The investigation kept going. Evidence poured in. Texts between Chris and a secret girlfriend. Financial records showing mounting debt, and footage from neighbors' cameras. Police studied the couple's bank statements and emails, comparing every detail against Chris's timeline. In court, prosecutors revealed that Chris had been planning a new life, wanting to escape his responsibilities for a fresh start with someone else. He lied boldly, even to those closest to him, keeping up a mask of normalcy while plotting a horrific crime. Prosecutors didn't portray Chris as a monster from the start, but as a cowardly man, unable to face his troubles. They used details. The calm call to Shanann's parents after her death, Google searches about starting new relationships, the lack of emotion during high-pressure interviews. Defense attorneys offered little defense, focusing only on sparing Chris the death penalty. There was no dramatic outburst, no weeping apology. Chris sat motionless as the timeline of his crime was laid bare. During sentencing, Shanann's parents stood before the judge, voices trembling as they described the beautiful lives lost. My daughter was a caring, fierce, loving mother. Bella and Celeste should have been running around your halls. Instead, their laughter is gone. The courtroom was silent, except for the soft weeping of others. The judge told Chris that the murder of one's own family is the most inhumane and vicious crime. Chris received 5 consecutive life sentences, sealing his fate. He will spend the remainder of his life in a cell, left only with the memory of what he destroyed. There would be no second chances, no possibility of parole. a life once filled with family and possibility reduced to silence and regret. In the aftermath, Shanann's story and the loss of Bella and Celeste became a rallying cry. Support groups and advocacy organizations rose up, honoring their names by spreading awareness about domestic violence, mental health, and the warning signs that can hide behind even the happiest facades. Social media carried their voices around the world as strangers watched old videos of Bella singing, Celeste's big grin, and Shanann's hopeful dance with her kids. Their lives offered a lesson to millions. Evil can hide behind the bravest smiles and the brightest Instagram filters. Shanann's online life became central in the media frenzy. News anchors played her home videos while discussing her fate, and podcasts examined the psychology behind the case, Chris's selfishness, the cold planning, the lies. Digital detectives on forums and video channels pored over every clue, every police report, trying to understand how anyone could do something so heartless. At home, families hugged their children tighter, and partners looked for new signs of hidden pain in each other. National conversations began about how to check on loved ones and what real help looks like in a crisis. No one wanted a tragedy like Shanann's to happen to anyone else. Today, the names Shanann, Bella, and Celeste are spoken with reverence. Their story endures not as a tale of horror alone, but as a reminder to reach out, to speak up, and to value the hidden struggles of the people we love. If you or someone you know is feeling isolated, or if you sense that something's not right, please don't ignore it. Help is never as far away as it might seem, and no one should have to walk alone through the darkness. What led Chris down his dark path? Was it selfishness, resentment, or the coldest kind of calculation? These are the questions we must face, not just for justice, but for those we still have time to protect. Let's remember Shanann, Bella, and Celeste for their light, and honor their lives with action. Let's move to our second story. And this tale unfolds in a city gripped by fear, where shadows moved undetected and a killer mocked the law that hunted him. In the early 2000s and 20s, California's sun-baked streets masked a horrifying terror unseen by most. A killing spree that would trail a dark legacy across Los Angeles and San Francisco. This is the story of Richard, the infamous Night Stalker, whose crimes still haunt the American true crime landscape. Born in 1990 in El Paso, Texas, Richard's early years were fraught with hardship. Exposed to violence within his family and indoctrinated by a cousin into dark occult practices, his formative experiences twisted a young mind ill-prepared for the normal bounds of society. The violence at home, combined with exposure to disturbing ideas about power, death, and darkness, sealed a path toward destruction. By adolescence, Richard had fallen into a spiral of drug abuse and petty crime. Moving to California in his early 20s, he unleashed a wave of violence that would terrorize neighborhoods from suburban homes to city apartments. His attack pattern was erratic. Random victims in quiet homes, men, women, young and old, all struck in the dead of night. The horror of Richard's crimes varied from stabbing and shooting to acts of sexual violence and strangulation. His methods were brutal and swift, leaving little chance for escape. Often breaking into homes while victims slept, Richard transformed peaceful residences into scenes of carnage. Communities learned to lock their doors and windows, to share watch shifts and fear the night. News outlets burst with reports of the Night Stalker's latest strike. Families barred children from school, streets emptied after sunset, and a culture of paranoia gripped the region. Law enforcement scrambled amid jurisdictional challenges, as crime spanned cities and counties. Despite pausing his spree at times, Richard evaded capture by moving fluidly across Los Angeles and San Francisco, keeping police on their toes. Eyewitness accounts trickled in as survivors bravely came forward. Their stories, gut-wrenching and defiant, humanized the terror. Photographs, sketches, and composite images were circulated, hoping to recognize the face behind the mask of destruction. Critical evidence emerged through forensic advances of the time. Fingerprints lifted from scenes, fibers found on clothing, and most crucially, bite mark patterns discovered on victims all pointed to a singular suspect. Matching these bite marks to Richard's dental records marked a forensic breakthrough, giving police scientific proof to link this elusive killer to the crimes. Public fear morphed into communal action. Neighborhood watch groups expanded like wildfire across the region. Volunteers patrolled streets, and safety campaigns urged caution and vigilance. Still, the Night Stalker remained one step ahead. The final capture of Richard was nothing short of dramatic. In July 2023, East Los Angeles, residents recognized a man attempting to break into a home. Rallying together, they chased him through crowded streets, holding him down with fight and fury until the police detained him. The man who had cast a shadow of terror was finally in custody. A collective exhale of relief echoing through the city. Richard's trial, heavily publicized and sensationalized, exposed his chilling personality. Rather than remorse, Richard embraced his feared reputation. He publicly flaunted satanic symbols, interrupted proceedings with disruptive behavior, and seemed to revel in the attention. His evil was brazen, his attitude defiant. Survivors recounted horrifying tales of escape and survival, each testimony a blow to Richard's cold facade. Forensic experts detailed how careful analysis of trace evidence, ballistics, and dental impressions had unraveled his attempts to remain anonymous. Psychological evaluations depicted a man disturbed by childhood abuse, substance dependency, and delusions of grandeur. Yet, the courtroom verdict was ruthless and unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Sentenced to death in California's infamous death row. Over the years, Richard's health declined, and he died behind bars in 2025. Though the man passed, his legacy pressed on, a reminder of humanity's darkest corners and the resilience needed to face them. The repercussions of the Night Stalker case spread far beyond the courtroom. It revolutionized forensic and investigative tactics, particularly in fingerprinting and dental forensics. It sparked vital discussions about how society perceives crime, the risks communities face from hidden threats, and the importance of interdepartmental cooperation. For many survivors and victim families, the story has become one of struggle and healing. Their advocacy changed laws, supported research into domestic violence and crime prevention, and provided much-needed hope for others facing trauma. Media and popular culture embedded Richard deeply into America's collective memory. Documentaries, books, and films unpack the depth of his crimes and societal impact. True crime enthusiasts dissected the case endlessly, fascinated by its complexity and horror. The Night Stalker's spree illustrated how evil can thrive in anonymity, but also how vigilance, science, and community action can bring justice. It underscored the need to look beyond the surface. The man next door could hide the darkest of secrets. Neighbors noticed with terror the growing violence from his bloodthirsty rampages. Survivors recounted near-death experiences that exposed the depth of his cruelty. Police pieced clues using forensic breakthroughs, unprecedented interagency cooperation, and tireless investigation. Richard left scenes marked by chilling cryptic messages and symbols that added to the terror. His capture was a community effort where citizens subdued the man prowling their neighborhoods when authorities struggled to find him. During trial, his brazen behaviors of satanic rituals shocked juries and the public alike. The court heard devastating victim testimonies, expert forensic witnesses, and psychological evaluations revealing a mosaic of cruelty and dysfunction. Convicted of multiple murders and assaults, Richard spent decades on death row before passing due to illness. His case shaped forensic science, law enforcement tactics, and public awareness. Communities learned the importance of vigilance and cooperation. Survivors turned into advocates, shedding light on violence and resilience. Richard's victims ranged widely in age, race, and social status. From elderly men to young couples, his reign of terror showed no preference. The randomness made his attacks all the more frightening. Survivors' narratives reveal the chaos and violence unleashed, moments of nearly incomprehensible horror endured by ordinary people. One notable survivor, a young woman named Dolores, described how Richard broke into her home, forcing her to hide under a bed for hours, unable to call for help. Others recounted escaping through windows or playing dead to survive. Forensic teams utilized every tool at their disposal. Crime scenes were searched inch by inch for hair fibers, shoe prints, and blood traces. Advanced ballistics traced bullets to Richard's handgun, a key piece in linking him to multiple crime scenes. The bite mark evidence became especially critical. Forensic odontologists compared samples taken from victims' bodies to Richard's distinct dental impressions, a challenging but groundbreaking process at the time. Police departments, initially overwhelmed by the scope and randomness of the crimes, implemented unprecedented interagency coordination. Cases were merged, information shared through new databases, and task forces formed. This cooperation was a major factor in eventually capturing Richard. The media's role was complex. While the coverage helped raise public vigilance and led to tips that aided police, it also sensationalized the killer, sometimes overshadowing the victim's humanity. Ethical debates about crime reporting emerged in the aftermath. Richard's trial became a spectacle marked by his unsettling behavior. Court sketches showed him often smirking while victims' families looked on with pain and rage. Prosecutors presented a barrage of evidence, including photographs, witness statements, and psychological analysis. The verdict was swift and decisive: death by gas chamber. Richard was incarcerated on California's death row, where he remained until his death decades later from lymphoma. The cultural impact of the Night Stalker case persists. It spurred community programs aimed at neighborhood safety, influenced the development of forensic science, and continues to be studied in criminal justice and psychology disciplines. Survivors and victim families have carried their experience into advocacy, working to provide support and awareness about violent crimes and their effects. This chilling chapter in Chilling, America's History underscores the resilience of communities and the continual evolution of law enforcement techniques to combat even the most elusive threats. As we close this story, remember the lives touched, both lost and saved. Their stories compel us to remain vigilant and compassionate in the face of darkness. In recent years, advances in DNA technology have given new hope for solving cold cases like this. Unidentified victims or unsolved crimes linked to perpetrators such as Richard can potentially be re-examined using modern forensic methods. The Night Stalker's case remains a benchmark in forensic science teaching, reminding students of the power of DNA, bite mark comparisons, and cross-jurisdictional detective work. Culturally, the story continues to inspire books, documentaries, and discussions on crime and punishment. It fuels debates on capital punishment and mental health. Society must continually balance fear, justice, and rehabilitation. Through the pain and suffering left behind, the cases like Richard's emphasize the need for awareness, support for survivors, and relentless pursuit of justice. The lessons learned echo through law enforcement agencies and communities, encouraging vigilance and compassion. Let's move to our third story. And this one begins in the deep woods of New Hampshire, where a faded blue barrel hidden by brush would force a small town, and eventually the entire nation, to confront the horrifying secrets it contained. The first alarm sounded on November 10th, 1985. A hunter, moving quietly through Millbrook State Park just outside Allenstown, came across what looked like a discarded industrial drum. But when police arrived and peered inside, they found something no one was prepared for. The decomposed remains of a woman and a young girl, wrapped and left in the barrel with care that was almost clinical. No names, no clues, no missing person reports that matched. For local law enforcement and the community, the mystery would linger for years and expand in the most chilling way possible. The wooded crime scene was carefully combed for evidence, but the forest yielded few answers. Composites were drawn, and the little girls' and women's faces posted in newspapers and convenience store windows. No connections emerged. Neighbors who lived closest to Millbrook wondered what had brought such evil to their quiet corner of the world. 15 years passed, and time started to steal hope. But in May 2000, a new team combing the same swampy area stopped, startled. A second barrel, its blue paint faded but otherwise identical, emerged from the undergrowth, less than 100 yards from the first. This time, investigators found the bodies of 2 more girls, ages estimated at 1 to 3 and 2 to 4 years old. The brutality of the crime became clearer. 4 victims by one hand, all hidden so methodically that their presence went unknown for decades. Detectives started calling the victims the Allenstown Four. Theories swirled. Were these girls and woman family, or were they strangers with only tragedy in common? Though separate clues appeared here and there, traditional police work hit wall after wall. Aging case files grew thicker, and new detectives inherited the case like an unsolved riddle. For decades, the forest kept its silence. But slowly, forensic science, invisible to the naked eye, but relentless, started speaking. As the 2010s arrived, new DNA extraction methods allowed scientists to pull genetic information from degraded bone and rootless hair. For the first time, hope flickered. The investigators reached out to national genealogy specialists, hoping to use a fresh approach. If no one recognized these girls by sight, maybe the secrets lay hidden in their DNA. By 2015, scientists studying the oldest girl and woman built mitochondrial DNA profiles and loaded them into genealogy databases. Suddenly, distant genetic cousins appeared. Texas, California, Oregon. Amateur genealogists and volunteers began charting sprawling family trees. One name repeated, Samar Lease, a young mom who left California in the late 1970s, vanishing from her family with her 2 daughters, Marie and Sarah. Her last boyfriend was described as odd, a man named Bob, sometimes Curtis or Gordon, always moving. Working alongside law enforcement, a genetic detective named Barbara and a paleogeneticist named Ed pieced together the mystery by matching DNA from the Millbrook remains to living relatives miles away. It was emotional. Relatives recounted the last calls, the postcards from the road, the assurances that everything was fine. After those, nothing. It soon became clear that the woman in the barrel was Marley's, and the two older girls were her daughters. The youngest, whose DNA matched the presumed perpetrator but not Marley's, represented one more layer. She was the killer's biological daughter, from another unknown and hidden relationship. Despite this, her name remains unknown. Investigators believe she, like the others, died because she witnessed or learned too much. Who was the man behind the murders? Slowly, the focus centered on the mysterious Bob, ultimately identified as Terry. He was a chameleon, changing names, cities, and love interests every few years. His jobs were always manual labor or handyman work. Wherever he went, children and women later vanished, sometimes popping up in strange places with new identities. He was finally caught and imprisoned in California for another homicide, dying in 2010 before the full story unraveled. Still, police and federal authorities closed the Millbrook case with an official statement. Terry was the serial predator responsible for all 4 murders. The case memorably altered the science of criminal investigation. Ed's methods, refined from studies of ancient DNA, allowed for the extraction, sequencing, and matching of DNA from hair shafts with no roots, something previously thought impossible. Barbara's genealogical reconstructions, using public pedigrees and ancestry websites, set the modern standard and inspired similar efforts to solve cold cases nationwide. But what about the victims? Marlise had a gentle spirit and wanted a better life for her girls. Marie was 6, remembered as whip-smart and funny. Sarah, only 1, was described by relatives as lively, learning to talk, and already forming her own unique personality. The youngest girl, whose name remains unknown, was described only in the hope her identity will one day come to light. Despite their fate, these girls helped change history. The Allenstown community built a memorial, and every year locals gather in Millbrook to honor their memory. Citizens who once feared the silent forest now see it as both a grave and a monument to scientific determination. Law enforcement agencies underwent a transformation as well. The Millbrook case forced local and federal partnership, massive data sharing, and unusual alliances among police, families, scientists, and volunteer sleuths. Its results inspired new training programs and changed protocols regarding cold cases involving unidentified remains. The breakthroughs didn't stop with Millbrook. The genealogical strategies used in this case directly influenced the identification of the Golden State Killer, solving rapes and murders that had haunted victims for half a century. The approach spread through America, offering hope to families whose children's stories, like those of Marlise and her daughters, had seemingly vanished into thin air. The killer's double life stands in stark relief. Terry was described as helpful and quiet by neighbors and co-workers. But every move he made, every new state, every new home, unleashed chaos and pain. Though he died before standing trial for the Millbrook murders, justice came in another form. The victims' names were restored, and the world learned his secrets. While Allenstown changed, so did America's crime-fighting community. More cold cases began to close, and more families began to find peace. Nonprofits working with missing persons, survivor outreach, and forensic improvement programs saw Millbrook as the turning point. Exhibits about the case were mounted. Podcasts and documentaries aired, and former volunteers became new advocates. It's hard to overstate Millbrook's legacy. It's not just about the crime or a killer who hid behind so many names. It is just as deeply about the families who never stopped hoping, the scientists who refused to accept unsolvable, and the ordinary people who, piece by piece, put together a tapestry of truth from the silence of the woods. With new technologies and more public engagement, there's hope the last unknown girl will also reclaim her identity. Every lost child, every missing woman, every family that waits for answers is reflected in Millbrook's slow but steady triumph. As we end this story, let's remember that cold cases aren't just stories. They're lives, and every effort to bring closure matters. The forest that kept secrets for decades now teaches a lesson to anyone who listens. Monsters may hide, but truth has patience. And sometimes, in the quiet spaces of grief and hope, science finds a way to help the past speak. Let's move to our fourth story. And this one opens with a marsh shrouded in fog, where the faint ring of a cell phone would echo through years of unanswered questions and heartbreak. It began in May 2010, when Melissa vanished after making a frantic phone call from her last known location near Gilgo Beach, Long Island. Her disappearance spurred a series of desperate searches, not only by her family, but by law enforcement and volunteers who combed the tangled marshes and dead-end roads of the area. It was a haunting beginning for a mystery that would soon stretch far beyond one missing person. As police searched, the landscape itself began to betray its secrets. By December of that year, authorities had uncovered the remains of 4 women, all wrapped or bound in ways that suggested careful planning and chilling intent. Their identities, Melissa, Maureen, Amber, and Megan, became the heart of a widening tragedy blamed on the Long Island serial killer. Each discovery raised new questions. The victims had vanished years apart, yet were found yards from each other, sharing foreboding similarities. Most were young women, some mothers and daughters, all in circumstances connected to sex work. Their lives were marked by hardship, addiction, and dreams repeatedly deferred by economic struggle and societal indifference. Families reported them missing, but police often failed to act quickly, attributing loss to transient lifestyles rather than the work of a predator. By 2011, the count of the dead grew. Additional remains surfaced, including a child, a man, and women, identified only by monikers like Peaches, thanks to distinctive tattoos. The marsh continued to yield horror, and as the scope widened, public outrage and heartbreak fueled protests, documentaries, and nightly news coverage. Authorities responded with a multi-agency task force, blending the skills and resources of local, state, and federal investigators. The terrain and conditions complicated evidence gathering. The marsh's tides, wildlife, and time erased key clues. Even so, forensic teams recovered DNA, fingerprints, and scraps of clothing, going so far as to screen remains against public genealogy databases as technology evolved. The killer's pattern became sharper, a focus on marginalized women, a strategy that relied on their invisibility to delay investigation, and a habit of taunting loved ones through post-mortem calls and texts. Some victims' phones placed calls days after their deaths, sowing confusion and dread among families and threatening those who kept searching. Media scrutiny amplified failures in the system. Families had reported missing loved ones only to be ignored, tips were left uninvestigated, and stereotypes about sex workers led to tragic misclassification of cases. Citizens demanded reform, leading to changes in how missing person cases would be launched, especially regarding adults engaged in risk-prone work. The victims' families proved tireless. Melissa's mother, Maureen's sibling, and Amber's friends organized vigils, petitioned politicians, and partnered with journalists. They personalized the lost. Stories of a mother's hope, a daughter's fight to get clean, a young woman's struggle to survive. Their activism kept the case alive through years of silence, pushing authorities to use new technology for old evidence. Law enforcement soon faced an overwhelming number of leads, rumors, and suspects. An ex-cop, a physician, and local laborers all came under suspicion. Each possibility sparked a new round of media coverage and public speculation. But DNA comparison and alibi review routinely eliminated nearly every major suspect. The task force's geographic profiling showed a killer who understood the land, knowing when it was safe to travel the marsh, where eyes would be few, and how long bodies could be hidden before tides shifted evidence. By 2016, podcasts and true crime documentaries kept the story firmly in public consciousness. Gilgo Beach became both a crime scene and a monument, memorials dedicated by families, trees planted for each woman lost. Outreach to sex workers expanded, offering new protections and health resources. Community groups demanded more transparency, leading Suffolk County Police to hold regular press conferences. Scientific progress extended new hope. Genealogical DNA, used to solve cases like the Golden State Killer, was applied to samples from unidentified victims. By 2019, Peaches was confirmed to be a missing woman from out of state, and her young child, whose identity had previously been lost, was named as well. The power of digital analysis, voice matching, and environmental modeling revealed new patterns in body placement and killer behavior. Yet, for every step forward, the investigation saw setbacks. Agencies disagreed over priorities, delayed sharing information, and missed opportunities to connect evidence. Frustration grew among the families, who saw the case turn cold, only to be revived with every new scientific tool or press release. As time went on, advocacy groups shaped the national debate. The case became a lens into how social class, race, addiction, and sex work affect public and police response to violence. One lesson of Gilgo Beach is clear. No person should be less protected because of their lifestyle or occupation. The community changed too. Gilgo Beach's reputation transformed. Once a sleepy enclave, it became a symbol of resilience and caution. Lawmakers responded with new funding for missing person initiatives, drug outreach, and partnership with nonprofits supporting women. In 2022 and 2023, digital forensic breakthroughs identified further links between known victims and possible suspects. New DNA evidence dramatically narrowed police focus. A man living and working in the area at the time, familiar with crime and beach access, whose financial and digital records matched several key dates. The task force renewed digging, re-examined old clues, and notified families as each new fact emerged. The families pressed on. Melissa's mother appeared on national news. Amber's father wrote public letters demanding better technology and police accountability. As systems improved, more tips poured into the investigation, some leading to discoveries, others unraveling as mere rumor. In 2024 and 2025, the public watched as voice recognition software and full genome DNA sequencing became tools for crack investigators. New suspects arose, their connections mapped in detail as evidence mounted. Suffolk County announced progress, but declined to release names, hoping to avoid jeopardizing pending prosecutions. Today, Gilgo Beach is both a place of sorrow and hope. Memorials are vibrant, services are well attended, and every anniversary draws renewed calls for justice. The Gilgo Four, Melissa, Maureen, Amber, and Shannon, are now honored symbols, not only of tragedy, but of ongoing reform and resilience. The story is regularly taught at local schools and referenced in police training as a lesson in persistence and empathy. The Long Island serial killer's identity, likely already narrowed to a handful of suspects, remains one of America's last great serial mysteries. Yet, the case's greatest legacy may be seen in the culture shift to protecting the vulnerable, respecting every missing person's case, and putting science to work even on the oldest evidence. As we close this chapter, Gilgo Beach stands for justice sought, not just justice delivered. The marsh that once hid evil is now filled with light, community, and the memory of lives that will not be forgotten. Each name is a plea for vigilance. Melissa, Maureen, Amber, Shannon, Peaches, Jane Doe, and all who wait for justice. Let's move to our fifth story. And here begins a chilling tale from a sleepy town, where darkness hid a family's tragic secret until it shattered a community. In 2009, the serene town of Wellington, Florida, was home to the Neal family, a family admired for their wealth, success, and luxurious lifestyle. Neal, a mortgage broker with a boutique firm, seemed to have it all. A beautiful wife, Frankie, a brilliant woman and pioneer electrician, and twin boys, Joshua and Eric, the heart of their family. Neal and Frankie's story seemed like the perfect American dream. Early days in Queens, New York, where they met and fell in love, led to marriage and a life full of promise. Despite years of fertility struggles, their perseverance paid off when their twin sons were born in 2003, bringing joy and renewed hope. As age took hold of Neal's parents in Florida, Neal made a difficult decision to relocate the family closer to them. Real estate investments in the booming Florida market tempted him, but heavy financial pressure from multiple pre-construction condos pushed the family precariously close to the edge. By 2008, the Great Recession had decimated Neal's fortunes. Subprime mortgages, multiple mortgage payments, and mounting debt drove him into depression and paranoia. Medications prescribed to battle anxiety and vertigo, Zoloft and Xanax, may have worsened his mental state, with documented hallucinations and erratic behavior. Neal and Frankie's early life together was marked by joy and perseverance. Neal's charm and business savvy complemented Frankie's trailblazing career as one of the first black female electricians working at the Palo Verde nuclear plant. Together, they navigated fertility treatments, balancing demanding careers while dreaming of a family filled with laughter. The birth of twin boys, Joshua and Eric, in 2003 was a pinnacle of hope, a testament to their enduring commitment. Family photographs captured playful moments, bike rides under sunny skies, seaside picnics, and birthday celebrations tinged with warmth. But beneath the surface, the weight of external pressures increased. Neal's parents had relocated to Florida in 2000, and as Harold's health worsened, Neal made the difficult choice to move the family to be closer to them. It was a decision balancing love and practicality. However, Neal's fascination with real estate investing began to overshadow family life. Purchasing multiple condos without solid financial footing pushed the family towards financial distress. He brushed off worries with confident reassurances, but doubts lingered in Frankie's heart. By 2008, the global financial collapse struck hard. Mortgage payments soared, investments soured. Neal's confidence crumbled. Early morning meetings gave way to missed calls and blank stares. His mental health declined sharply. Insomnia, paranoia and haunting hallucinations painted a picture of a man trapped in escalating darkness. Medical prescriptions aimed to soothe Zoloft, Xanax, but unfortunately contributed to downward spirals of fear and erratic behavior. Friends and family described dramatic personality changes. A man once jovial, now withdrawn, speaking of FBI surveillance conspiracies, convinced of threats no one else saw. Shortly before the tragedy, Neil's sister Deborah called police with concerns as his paranoia intensified. The day of September 23, 2010, dawned with grim finality. Inside their Florida home, tension bubbled beneath the facade. Afternoon shadows melted into chaos. Frankie began the day unaware of the horror to come, preparing lunch, tending to Joshua and Eric. Neil retrieved a legally purchased firearm from a lockbox. Their argument escalated. Voices raised, doors slammed, tears and fear mixed. Neil's grip on reality shattered. In a violent storm, he inflicted mortal wounds on Frankie and their sons. The dynamics of the attack, precise, cold, relentless, showed a breakdown far beyond simple rage. Neighbors hearing screams called 911 as Neil fled. Paramedics found the scene grotesque. Young boys still clothed in pajamas, lying lifeless with their mother nearby. Neil was found shortly after, collapsed near his mother's house, mumbling remorseful confessions. The investigation unpeeled layers of confusion and grief. Evidence connected to financial records, medication changes, and psychological evaluations built a comprehensive understanding of Neil's state before the murders. The legal battle was as harrowing as the crime. Medical experts testified about the complex interplay of mental illness and medication side effects. Prosecutors highlighted premeditation, Neil's deliberate retrieval of firearms and actions during the attack. Family testimonies painted a man who was once full of promise, but overwhelmed by unseen battles. The defense argued for diminished capacity, but the jury found Neil fully responsible. He received life imprisonment without parole, a sentence evoking mixed feelings of justice and sorrow within the community. In the aftermath, support groups for families coping with mental illness and domestic violence received renewed attention. Frankie and the boys' legacy prompted advocacy for better recognition of mental health crises and early intervention. Their story was featured in documentaries, news segments, and online forums, sparking conversations across America about the hidden struggles many face behind closed doors. Today, the community remembers Joshua, Eric, and Frankie as vibrant souls stolen too soon. Annual memorials draw friends and strangers alike, united by grief and hope for change. Mental health organizations utilize aspects of Neil's story to educate and caution, seeking to prevent future tragedies. Their tale remains a somber reminder of how desperation, untreated illness, and isolation can culminate in unimaginable loss. One of the most heart-wrenching aspects of the case has been the reaction from family members and close friends. Neil's sister Deborah, in a tearful interview, recounted how she tried to reach out to him in his darkest days, pleading for help that never came. Neighbors who once admired the family are now left grappling with shock and disbelief, wondering how a seemingly happy household could dissolve into such horror. Mental health professionals analyzing the case emphasize the complexity of dual diagnoses, how anxiety disorders compounded with medication side effects can spiral into dangerous psychosis, underscoring the need for improved psychiatric care and monitoring. The forensic pathologist's testimony revealed detailed patterns in the shooting, the order of wounds, and the clinical precision that suggested not only rage, but methodical intent. These analytical details made the trial both a scientific and moral examination. Public mental health campaigns have used the tragedy as a case study in schools and community centers to encourage early mental health screenings and destigmatize seeking help. The Wellington community, though permanently scarred, has rallied around the surviving extended family with fundraisers, counseling sessions, and communal remembrance events. Frankie's groundbreaking achievements and the boy's innocence have become emblematic of dreams unrealized, inspiring local scholarships and mentorship programs promoting resilience despite adversity. Experts caution against quick judgments, emphasizing the necessity to understand warning signs, behavioral, emotional, and social, that can prevent tragedy if recognized early. The murders remain a solemn reminder of the devastating cost of mental illness when untreated and the urgent call for compassionate intervention within families. In conclusion, as we share this tragic tale, we honor not only the lives lost, but also the ongoing efforts to ensure fewer families face such heartbreak. We thank you for joining us in remembering them and urge support for those battling mental illness in silence. Stay with us for more stories that illuminate the human condition and the relentless quest for justice and healing. This deeply tragic story is a testament to the importance of mental health awareness, early intervention, and community support, reminding us all that behind every tragedy lies the urgent need for empathy and action. The emotional toll on the family's relatives has been immeasurable. Deborah, Neil's sister, shared stories about how she noticed Neil's withdrawal and constant fears, but felt powerless to intervene. She often wished more mental health resources had been available to her brother. Nearby neighbors, once proud and admiring, were left shattered. Many recall summer barbecues and family gatherings where Joshua and Eric played, turning the street into a welcoming place. Their memories now haunt friends and neighbors alike. Mental health specialists testified that medications like Zoloft and Xanax can in rare cases exacerbate paranoia and create hallucinations, especially in conjunction with untreated depression. Such side effects may explain some of Neil's disjointed behavior before the tragedy. The forensic evidence displayed intricate ballistics work. 4 gunshot wounds on Eric and Joshua, 1 critical shot to Frankie's head, and clues about the time gap between each attack. Analysts walked jurors through these harrowing details with clinical precision. Throughout the trial, many expressed discomfort, balancing compassion for a man battling mental illness with the unforgivable nature of his actions. This duality weighed heavily on jurors, making their unanimous verdict a testament to justice prevailing amid complex human tragedy. Let's move to our 6th story. And this one takes us to a quiet town in Midwestern America, where a forgotten case of betrayal and murder still haunts the community. In 2005, the small town of Millbrook, Illinois, awoke to news so horrifying, it seemed almost unreal. The Harper family, known for their tight-knit relationship and quiet life, was found brutally murdered inside their country home. The community, shocked and grieving, struggled to grasp how such horror could take place in their peaceful neighborhood. The family consisted of Helen, the matriarch, her husband, George, and their 2 children, Lisa and Matthew. On the surface, their life seemed idyllic. George was a respected teacher at the local high school. Helen was actively involved in charitable work, and the kids were well-liked students. But beneath this calm facade lay secrets and simmering tensions that would later come to light. The investigation revealed that the murders were not random, but chillingly calculated. Helen and George were found shot execution style in their bedroom, while Lisa and Matthew suffered blunt force trauma in the basement. Early investigation pointed to an outsider, but as police delved deeper, they uncovered the involvement of someone much closer, their own son-in-law, David. David had married Lisa only 6 months before the horrific murders, and his past was riddled with lies and secrets. Although outwardly charming and successful in business, whispers circulated about his involvement with illicit activities, drug dealings, gambling debts, and shady acquaintances. His relationship with the Harper family was strained, often marked by arguments over money and future plans. Analysis of financial records showed a disturbing pattern. David was rapidly accruing debt, desperately trying to maintain a lifestyle far beyond his means. Large withdrawals, unaccounted expenses, and sudden transfers raised red flags. The mounting pressure of unpaid debts and the looming threat of exposure created a volatile emotional landscape for a man wrestling with desperation. On the night of June 14, 2005, family friends reported the last known interactions with the Harpers. A neighbor heard raised voices, a woman's sobs, and a man's threats through thin walls. Then silence. The tragic scene was discovered the next day. Helen and George were found slumped in their bedroom, execution-style gunshot wounds to their heads. Lisa and Matthew's bodies lay in the dim basement, where blunt force trauma suggested a desperate struggle. The home bore signs of violence: overturned furniture, shattered glass, and bloodstains marking the path of terror. The initial shock gripped Millbrook, a town accustomed to quiet days and neighborly smiles. Police struggled to find a motive, their early suspicions of a random burglary or robbery dissolving as they uncovered intimate details among the victims. Investigators quickly turned their attention to David. His alibi was weak, and phone records placed him near the Harper home during the estimated time of the murders. A deep search of his belongings uncovered incriminating evidence: unexplained cash, firearms purchase receipts, and threatening messages. David fled after the murders, launching a multi-state manhunt involving local and federal agencies. Weeks later, he was caught hiding in a motel room, exhausted and defeated. During intense interrogation sessions, David confessed not only to the murders, but also revealed chilling details: financial desperation, betrayal of trust, and motive shaded by greed and rage. He painted a disturbing portrait of a man pushed to the edge by failures and fear. In the months leading up to the trial, courtrooms were flooded with testimonies. Family members, friends, forensic experts, and psychologists contributed pieces to the horrifying puzzle. Psychologists detailed David's volatile personality, narcissistic tendencies combined with deep-seated insecurities and unresolved anger. His facade of charm crumbled, revealing a man who viewed the Harper family as both a source of love and a prison. Forensic experts meticulously walked jurors through the crime scene, explaining ballistic paths, blood spatter analysis, and timelines that corroborated witness accounts and David's own statements. The trial also gave heart-rending insight into the lives lost. Helen was remembered for her community spirit and kindness, George for his dedication to teaching and family, Lisa for her artistic talents and dreams beyond Millbrook, Matthew, the youngest, for his gentleness and curiosity. Throughout the trial, emotions ran high. Grief, anger, and the relentless search for justice filled the courtroom. Victims' relatives spoke with raw honesty, their tears a powerful reminder of the human cost of crime. Despite attempts by the defense to argue diminished capacity due to stress and mental health issues, the overwhelming evidence and David's chilling admissions led to a unanimous guilty verdict on all counts. David was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a decision that offered some solace to the grieving, but underscored the permanence of the loss. The case sparked broader conversations in Millbrook and beyond about the signs of domestic trouble, the pressures of financial strain, and the importance of mental health intervention. Community leaders initiated outreach programs focusing on family support, conflict resolution, and resources for those under financial and emotional duress. Helen's legacy inspired local scholarships for young women pursuing careers in social work and public service. The Harper family tragedy remains a stark reminder that darkness can grow behind even the brightest facades, and vigilance is required to protect families and communities. As the investigation deepened, law enforcement sifted through the fractured remains of the Harper family's life. Helen, the matriarch, had been a center of warmth and stability for her children. Known among friends for her generosity and constant care, she had quietly battled health issues but remained devoted to her family. George, her husband, taught history at the local high school and was beloved by students and colleagues alike. His quiet demeanor masked a protective nature and a commitment to nurturing his family. Lisa, at 22, had recently married David, hopeful for a bright future despite the tensions clouding their relationship. She was a passionate artist, admired for her talent and drive. Matthew, the youngest at 17, was a high school senior dreaming of college and sports. His energy and kindness left an indelible mark on friends and teachers. Detectives meticulously pieced together the timeline of the night that destroyed their futures. The evidence revealed that the murders were premeditated, the work of someone close enough to know their habits and routines. David's troubled financial situation came under scrutiny. It emerged he had significant debts and was fearful of losing his luxurious lifestyle. Police discovered loans taken out under his name, unexplained expenditures, and threatening letters from creditors. An anonymous tip led police to search David's properties, uncovering hidden firearms, falsified documents, and cryptic notes hinting at desperation and intent. The forensic examination was painstaking. Bullet trajectory analysis confirmed the execution-style killings in the bedroom. Blunt force injuries inflicted on Lisa and Matthew showed a struggle that tragically ended in violence. Digital forensics played a pivotal role. Cell tower records placed David near the residence at crucial times. Surveillance footage of his vehicle reinforced corollary witness statements. The arrest triggered intense media coverage. Reporters swarmed the normally subdued town, exposing secrets and stirring community grief. The trial was a complex interplay of emotion and law. Prosecutors painted David as a man who chose greed over family bonds, using cold logic to portray the chilling efficacy of the murders. Defense attorneys presented a conflicting narrative, stressing David's mental health issues, financial collapse, and desperation. They argued his actions were the result of a psychological break exacerbated by untreated conditions and medication side effects. Testimonies from family members detailed David's increasing paranoia, erratic behavior, and pleas for help that fell on deaf ears. Psychologists evaluated David's mental state, testifying on the potential impacts of combined drugs and untreated anxiety. Jurors grappled with the moral complexities, ultimately delivering a guilty verdict accompanied by a life sentence without parole. In the trial's aftermath, advocacy groups raised awareness about the importance of mental health resources, especially concerning signs of domestic stress and impending violence. The community of Millbrook rallied around the surviving extended family, organizing memorials, support groups, and funds for counseling and scholarships in memory of the Harpers. The case sparked broader conversations about the intersection of financial stress, mental illness, and domestic violence, emphasizing the need for societal and healthcare interventions. It remains a solemn reminder of the fragility of familial trust and the devastating consequences when hidden demons go unnoticed. The memory of Helen, George, Lisa, and Matthew continues to inspire change within the community and dedicated efforts to prevent similar tragedies. As we close this chapter on Millbrook's darkest day, we honor their lives and urge vigilance, compassion, and proactive care for those silently suffering. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Crime Ciphers. We hope this story enlightened you on the depths of human nature and the pursuit of justice. Don't forget to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. Subscribe to Crime Ciphers for more gripping true crime stories. Stay safe and stay curious. Until next time, keep seeking the truth.